Welcome to the Faith Talks Wood podcast. I'm Will from Flat Woodworks.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.
And we're a podcast that talks about, well, everything from Jesus to joinery. So we like to talk about life. So, Tom, I forgot to tell you a story about Workbench Con when, when we were coming back. So Cody Elkins and I caught that Uber at 4:30, got to the airport just around 5, and we going through TSA, and at Workbench Con, I bought one of those zip strings. You see them guys with them like the crazy long string things. I bought one because I was like, oh, Eli would love that. And so, but I asked the guy before I bought it, I said, hey, is this thing will make it through TSA? He's like, oh yeah, they're no problem at all. They won't flag you or nothing. And so we get through, and the Atlanta airport's nuts. And so we finally get through up to where we're going to go through to do the check and everything. And I take off my belt and all my stuff. I put my bag through, and then I get down, and my my shoes and all my stuff like that is at the end. Well, then I see my bag went the other way. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Now, mind you, I've flown a lot. One job that I had back in Tennessee, I flew to Texas monthly. And so, like, I'm used to flying. I've never had a bag hold. I'm really good at making sure. Now, I had tape and clamps and all kinds of stuff from Workbench Con in the bag. And so I was like, wow, maybe there's something there. And so I get all my stuff that did come through, and I'm waiting there, and there's somebody in front of me getting their bag checked. And then my bag comes up, and she said, "This your bag?" I was like, "Yeah." And she was really nice. Surprisingly, I thought for sure TSA she's gonna be mean, but she was like, "All right, well, we've got something on your bag." And she's like, "There look like there's all kinds of weird stuff in here." So she starts opening up the bag, and she's like, clamps and tape and CA glue and all this stuff, and finally she gets all the way down to the bottom of the bag, and it's that zip string thing. It was still in the box. I hadn't even opened up yet, and she's like, "What is this?" I'm like, oh, it's a toy I bought at the convention I was at. It's like they were on Shark Tank. I was telling her, and she's like, oh, okay. Threw it back in the bag, zipped everything back up, and handed it to me. I'm like, I was like on edge. I was for sure. I was like, oh, they're going to body search me. They're going to throw me against the wall. I was going down all the bad paths, but finally got through TSA, and then Cody and I went and had breakfast, found some real breakfast after that Workbench Con breakfast. Went and got some bacon, eggs, and potatoes. So that was an interesting thing too. So Cody and I, our gates were like 5 apart, and so we were really close. And so he's like, "Hey, let's go find some breakfast." We're like, "Where are we gonna find breakfast?" And it's like kind of a mall kind of thing. There's all kinds of places. There's a Chinese restaurant, and in the mornings they convert to doing normal breakfast. And then, around 10:30, 11 o'clock, they switch over to doing Chinese food. And I'm going to tell you what, I got French toast. I got French toast, bacon, eggs, and like hash browns. It was really good. I was like super surprised. Like the French toast was fresh. Like I was watching them make it on a fryer in the back. I was like, this is kind of impressive. It wasn't that expensive. So I had a Chinese place American breakfast at the Atlanta airport, and it was phenomenal. Now, it also could have been phenomenal because I'd spent the last 4 days eating this floofy yogurt and whatever they were giving us at Workbench Con. So, but yeah, that's my story. I forgot I was going to mention it last week on the podcast, but yeah. So how's your week been?
And I haven't touched a tool since we got home from Workbench Con. I am 100% outside on the farm, getting everything ready for garden season. And man, it's just too much to do and not enough time to do it. So I literally have not even smelt sawdust this week. It's just been it's been all getting the fence line cleared, getting the soil ready. I've got so much to do. Because here in Colorado, the way our irrigation works for our farm, they don't allow you to have wells here. And so now the government controls everything. So all of our irrigation water comes off of the Colorado River. And so it's a really neat system the way they've done it, but they basically have taken and diverted water off into these irrigation canals, and essentially it flows through the canals, and then each farm has a port with a gate that allows us to get our irrigation water. But they determine when it opens and they determine when it closes. And it's all based on weather, freezing and all that. So anyway, it opens up April 1st. So last year it was like the middle of April, and then it'll close down first to middle of October type thing. And the canals just all run right back into the river. So it's basically kind of making an extra little creek off of the river that goes back into the river, and then we feed off of it. But I've got to get everything ready for planting season, and so yeah, man. But I got to find some time to get in the shop because I picked up 3 new commissions this week, so I'm gonna be working some very long days for the next month. But
man, that's crazy. It's funny. It was 70 degrees here. I don't know what day it was this week. It was really nice all week. Like, we were outside every night doing stuff, picking up sticks, kind of getting ready, for the spring, summer stuff. And there's about 8 inches of snow out there right now, and it's been a whiteout all afternoon, and it's going to be 50 degrees tomorrow. Like, Pennsylvania weather is drunk, and it needs to go home, because let me tell you what, it's crazy. And it's that wet snow that makes the road super slick, and it's just been nuts. But before we jump into our guest today, I just want to say thank you guys for listening to the podcast. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so at patreon.com/Faith Talks Wood. You can also give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and pray for us. We love this podcast and feel like God has ordained it. And so prayer goes a long way. But man, we got a special guest on the podcast today. I'm going to let you intro this fine gentleman. I'm excited to hear how God has worked in his life.
Yeah, man. So I met this guy by pure coincidence, and people like him is why I hate Instagram and Facebook. And let me explain. He is the type of guy I want to connect with, and I had never seen a single post of his before. And how I discovered him was actually listening to another podcast. He was on the Festival podcast, and I was like, and he started talking about Jesus on the Festival podcast. I was like, I have got to know this guy. I went and looked him up, and I'm like, he's got 100,000 followers. How have I never seen a post from this guy? And it just there's so many people out there, and it's like Instagram puts all these people I don't want to see in front of me, and then the guy I want to see doesn't. So with that being said, Mr. Nolan from NolanBuilt is, man, I just love this guy. Every morning he gets up, he reads his Bible, and he posts a message on his stories, and it's just inspiring to me. And so Nolan, welcome to the podcast, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys inviting me on. I really am excited to talk with you guys and talk about Jesus. It's like I think this is the first podcast where that's the main point. It's like normally I'm like trying to find my end, trying to spread that word in whatever way I can without not necessarily being too offensive or anything like that. But no, I mean, me, love woodworking, love Jesus, and just try to do both of those every day. That's something I've been blessed to be able to do, and I wouldn't be able to do it without him. So,
amen. So tell us where you're located, a little bit about you and your family, and all.
I'm in Hampton, Virginia, married with one kid, 8 years old, and I've been here since I graduated high school in this area. So I've moved back and forth between Hampton and Newport News, but they're pretty much right beside each other. So
very cool, man. So I know you live there now. Tell us about your upbringing and when and how did you come to know Jesus?
I mean, my parents were both Christian, and so I was brought up this way. I've always been in church. I've always been taught, Jesus Christ and the Bible. Did it always stick with me? No, not necessarily. You get a little older and you do things you want to do, and you make choices. I wouldn't say that it was like a mistake or anything like that. It was like, I feel like probably from about age 12 or 13, you're pretty much you making choices at that point. And whether they're immature choices or not, it is what it is. But yeah, so I was brought up in church. I went to private school, probably, I think, first grade through, I want to say seventh grade. I think eighth grade, I went to public school and, got a little bit change of scenery and a little shell shock of what things were outside of the protection of, stricter rules and regulations and stuff like that. So, and then my last year of high school, I went back to private school, not necessarily because it was private school for the Christianity portion of it, but mostly because at that time I was chasing a basketball career, and this school had a little bit more visibility than my public school did. So, and I had a friend that had just went there a year before. So, I basically went and lived with him and his parents and finished my last year of school there. And then pretty much that basketball thing didn't work out there as far as me getting into a college. And so one of my teammates there ended up at a trade school here in Newport News. And so when I heard that he was going there, I talked to him and my coach at high school and asked if they would be able to see if I could come up here as well. So this trade school is a school here in Newport News called the Apprentice School. And basically, you can come up here and play basketball, have a job, go to work, and be in school all in the same breath. So basically, you're getting paid to go to school, you have a job, you get to play basketball, and you can, I think, like the second year in, you can opt to like go what's called the advanced course and end up with like an associate's degree or something like that. And then also, when you're in this company, you can go to night school and they'll pay for your night school to go get your bachelor's, as long as it's in a degree that they can use in that business. So I was able to basically continue playing basketball, have a job, live life, and not have any debt coming straight out of high school. And that's how I ended up from North Carolina to Virginia. And, I basically, after that, I've never left. I met my wife at this job after I graduated, and the rest is history. So I'm here now. I'm no longer at that job. I think I left there after 15 years of being there in 2020 and took this business full time. I believe I started the business back in 2015. So, man, it's coming up on 10 years now officially for the business. So yeah, time is flying now.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. What I'm curious, a private Christian school that's got a basketball program. I actually, today, it's Sunday, I ref basketball. And so our church does it's called Upward. It's a Christian youth league. And so I spent all afternoon, I ref 3 games in a row. I'm exhausted. But what I'm curious on that private school, it must have been a bigger school, I guess, to have some basketball recognition, or?
Yeah, so in North Carolina, the private school was called Word of God Christian Academy in Southeast Raleigh. I guess if you want to like, I guess, put some context on it or whatnot, maybe about 4 or 5 years after I graduated, that was the high school that John Wall came from.
Oh yeah. I was a big Kentucky fan back in high school. So I actually went and toured Rupp Arena and watched a game when he was playing back in the day. So
yeah. I tried to go see him play. And I was traveled down there or whatever, and I was just back home for visiting family for holidays or whatever. And I tried to go see him play, but it just so happened that game he was out sick or something like that. But they had a stacked team, so he was the one that made it out of all of them. But the rest of them could go too. It was quite a bit of them, and it was an exciting game. So it's like, but. There was quite a, like, when I was coming up, private school was a kind of a thing that's where you would, I mean, there were certain private schools, but that's kind of where you would go to get more exposure or whatnot.
Interesting.
And then there's also a thing in private schools that some private schools have what's called, prep teams or whatever. So basically, you have this thing where you can kind of like reclassify your grade, and basically it's like intentional you getting held back a grade so you can have more time in high school to be able to make it to a D1 college team or whatever. And then there are some high schools where they're like full on boarding, like they have room and board, like it's almost like a college experience. Like I think there was one here in Virginia called Christ Church, and it's like you basically go there, you live there, you live on campus. And you, if you're not like on basketball scholarship, then all these schools come with tuition and so on and so forth or whatever. But for the most part, most of the basketball players that will be going there for those reasons will be going there on scholarship, trying to necessarily either maybe get their grades up, get help, or just go into the college scene at a different time frame. So like, hey, maybe the guys that you're coming up with are a lot better than you. And then you reclassify and you come through with the next class. It may not be as good as you. You may be able to actually get one of those scholarship spots at a higher level school than just going in and trying to do a walk on or whatever, or maybe going in and having to pay full tuition.
Interesting. So private school where I live at in northwestern Pennsylvania. Now we lived in Nashville for 6 years, Nashville, Tennessee. And even down there, the private schools weren't known for sports. I think there was just one school in Nashville that was a bigger school that was known for sports like basketball and stuff. But yeah, that's it. I didn't know that world existed, like that was a thing. So that's because my wife went to private Christian school. I went to public, but then we're going to send our kids to private Christian, and it's a small school. Like the whole school's got like 400 students, from grade K through 12. But
that's how all of them are.
Really?
Like I went to 2, and all of them were like K through 12, small school. But then you have 12 people out of that school that might be basketball players, whether it's men or women's basketball, depending on what the school programs were, I guess, pushing towards or whatever it may have been or whatever. But those couple of people in that program, if it was, say, like the pastor or the athletic director came from that type of environment, then they were already knew what they wanted and what they wanted to push for or whatever. So I mean, it's to the point where sometimes I won't say they recruited, but it always seemed like they had good players. So it's like either the word was out in the community that this is the place to go, or there was somebody out there saying, hey, if your son comes here, whatever. I don't know. I've never been a part of that world after I left, so I don't know what the athletic directors and all that stuff going on. I just played in that environment or whatnot. But it was like a common thing for when I was growing up for private schools. But I mean, it's the same thing when you think of LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony's and stuff like that. They all went to the private schools, Kobe Bryant, Lower St. Mary, like all of those school names were, the Mount Zions and the Oak Hills. Those are all private schools. Now, every private school doesn't necessarily have to be a Christian-based school either, but majority of them are. But all of them don't have great basketball programs either. So it's like, it all depends.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I grew up playing basketball, but funny enough, I actually grew up playing volleyball. So men's volleyball up here in the north is pretty big. Like my district where I live at, there's a state champion men's volleyball school in my district every year. And so super, super competitive. Then I grew up playing basketball. You'll find this funny with the Amish. And I tell you what, you play basketball all your life. And I've played all my life all over the place. I've never played basketball with anybody better than Amish. Their way of communicating with one another, they're strong as oxes. And so if homeboy goes driving down the lane, like you don't get in front of him because he's built and you're going to hurt yourself. Right. But super athletic, super like, I played with a guy who was like 5'7" and could dunk it. It's just like this crazy, but the funny thing about them is it was an invite only league that I played in. And so you didn't just show up, like you had to be invited. And, if like they knocked you down or fouled you, they'd help you up and they'd apologize, like because their character and integrity is, but they were super competitive. And one of the guys, his name was Dickie, and he was actually scouted to D1 because of how good he was. And this guy was like the Steph Curry before Steph Curry. This is 15, 20 years ago, where he's hitting threes and there's just money. And then if he had to go in and drive it, and he would go in and just put it in. It was insane. But yeah, it's definitely a different world. But yeah, that's awesome. I used to be huge into college basketball. I was a big Kentucky fan because my youth pastor growing up was a Kentucky fan. And so, he just kind of, what happened is he took a group of us youth group kids, guys, to Rupp Arena. His best friend from high school had connections, and we got tours of Rupp Arena and got to go to a game. And when you drink that Kool-Aid, like that's just what it was. And so I watched Kentucky for years, and then got married and had kids. I just haven't been into it like I used to be. But man, that's super cool. You still play ball at all, or?
Nope.
Really?
Nope. After I played in, this trade school up here, after that was done and over with, I played a little bit, and then it's like the reality set in. Like I think I got hurt one time or something. Somebody hyperextended my elbow or something, and it was just like, it's not worth it anymore. It's like I got bills now. And when I got hurt, it was like I'm out of work for a little while. It was like, at the time, like, I mean, then is insurance and workers' comp, all that stuff will cover you or whatever, but it's not the same amount of pay or whatever. But like eventually it started clicking that saying this is fun to play or whatever. But because I was such a competitive player playing, I didn't have a way to be able to play like kind of just relaxed or whatever. It was like either I'm playing to win or I'm not playing at all. And I kind of had to make that decision. It's like, all right, I'm just not going to really play anymore or whatever, because no matter how long I had been out of the scene or whatever, my mind still said I could do everything I used to be able to do. And then when I tried to go do it, my body said, no, you can't. And it was just like,
yeah. What's funny is I grew up in the and one era. And so, and I grew up, we'll have to go down to my story, but
how old are you? How old are you?
I'm 32.
Okay, so I'm 37. So yeah, all right.
Not too far apart, but so I grew up like watching The Professor and Escalade and all them guys, and I lived in the hood. I grew up in the projects, and so that's what we did. And so I was out there balling, just wasn't playing structured basketball. We was out there balling on the street and just doing that stuff. And that's where my love of basketball came. But I never really played structured basketball in high school or anything because there's a lot of politics with it. But they started farming us. I mean, I started playing volleyball in second grade, and like they built up. And so by the time you got to high school level, you'd been playing a long time, and that's why we were so good. And I actually hate volleyball now. I want nothing to do with it. It's weird, but I love getting out on the court. I mean, I reffed those games today. In between the games, I'm shooting around and still trying to keep my form and stuff. And funny enough, I'm not super tall. I'm 6'2". I'm kind of a bigger guy, but I don't like physical contact. And so I became a shooter. I was like, I can do this. But the other thing that a lot of people don't like about me is I'm not competitive. It's the weirdest thing. Like, I love playing basketball and I love going out and playing and teamwork. But if I win or lose, I don't care. The only time I get competitive is if I'm out on the court and there's somebody there showboating and being kind of a bully on the court, then my defense kicks in and I shut them down. Like, that's the only time in my whole athletic career that I get competitive is when there's somebody like that. So it's just a weird thing. But like, people play against me, like play one-on-one or play, horse or knockout, and I lose. I don't care. Like, man, that's fun. Let's do it again. And they're like, why aren't you getting worked? I don't know. I just never have been. It's kind of a weird. People hated playing against me. And I'm also that guy that if I do get a shot on you, or I do come up in high school, I could dunk, but not no more. Your boys gained some weight, and so, but I wouldn't showboat it. I wouldn't like, oh, in your face. Like, I just, I don't know. It's just a weird thing. But so people hated playing with me. But man, that's awesome. I could talk ball all day. But so we talked a little bit before the thing. So you got into the shipbuilding world, and then what got you into woodworking, man? Like, how'd you get into woodworking?
When so in the shipyard, the trade school I went to pretty much kind of groomed you to mentally go towards the management side of things. And so the entire, 4 to 7 years that I was, working with my tools, actually fitting pipe or whatever, the whole goal was to get to supervisor so that I can get off the tools and not be down in the trenches and, working and getting dirty and all that stuff all the time or whatever. And so I worked really hard to get to that point, and I finally made supervisor. I got a job as a supervisor, and as soon as I got there, got behind the desk, coordinating, make sure all the guys had jobs and all that stuff like that. Well, I walked into being a supervisor in my first crew. It was a mix. It was a mix between, maybe a couple guys that had been there maybe 1 or 2 years that didn't really know a lot about anything. I had to teach them some stuff. Then I had the other half of the crew that was like been there 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, didn't need no help. So it was just like, I basically just handed them their job assignment, make sure they got the material they needed. And it was just like, all right, so now as a supervisor, what do? I was bored. I was bored out of my mind. I could not know. And it was like against the rules. You couldn't go down there and like work with them or help them or anything like that. Like, as a management employee, you could no longer do hourly employee tasks or whatnot. One, it was against the union rules, and then 2, the management rules was like, that's not what we're paying you for. You know what I'm saying? We don't have time for you to be down there, doing this and that or whatever. And so basically I was like, this is boring. Like, I pass out job assignments and then walk around and check on y'all, order material here and there, try to pre-plan to, make sure the material is going to be there when the next job is ready or when this job is done type of deal. I'm managing, 15, 20 jobs at a time or whatever. But to me, that didn't consume my mind the way actually physically working with my hands. And while I was working with my hands, all I wanted to do was get away from it. When I got away from it, I didn't realize how much I liked it until I couldn't do it no more. So that's when I would start going home. And well, that's when I bought my first house. And once I bought my first house, I bought it to be a flip property. It was an investment. I wanted to basically get in there. I think I bought it right around that 2009 time frame. So it's like that 2008 crash that just happened. I was getting into a foreclosure. Got a really good price on like a 4-bedroom, two bath house or whatever. It was like, all right, so we're gonna basically just go in here and do cosmetic updates. Replace carpet, replace tile, paint, and countertops, paint cabinets, and stuff like that or whatever. And I had no experience in doing any of that stuff. But in my mind, I was like, well, I got a pretty decent job. I just, contract this stuff out. And when I went to go get prices, I think I was at Home Depot or Lowe's. I went to go price out kitchen tile job for the floor. And I think they quoted me for like a 10-foot by 10-foot floor. It was like $2,500. And this is like 2009, 2010. And I was like, I didn't have it. It was like, I can't afford that. So I went and priced out how much the material was and how much the tile saw was and the tools and stuff. And it was like $500 for everything that I needed to just do the job myself. So I was like, well, for $500, I could mess up at least twice before I got to come back and pay y'all. And so that was my first DIY situation where I was like, I can figure this out. And so back then, YouTube wasn't really a big thing. So I found a Home Depot DVD on how to tile floor. And so I watched this DVD, and I just kept going back and watching this DVD as I was going through the steps of, doing the tile or whatever. And that's where it all started. I started with that tile floor. I got that done. I think the next project was like some shelves inside of the my closet. And basically it was just like some cheap L brackets and some 1x12s. And I can still remember right now that those 45-degree miters had to have a 1/2-inch gap. And back then I was like, yeah, I did that. I did it. And it was like, man, I look back on where I started from to where I am now. It's like, I cringe at the stuff that, I was considering, okay or acceptable. But it's like, we all start somewhere. And then like with watching Instagram and YouTube and stuff as I was going and as things progressed, I started learning what was acceptable, what was not acceptable. There were people talking about, how to get better, how to do this and do that. And I was just a sponge. It just took off. So my first woodworking tool was Black & Decker Matrix. It was basically like a drill where you can detach the head of it and it can turn into from a drill to impact to a circular saw to a sander to a router to a jigsaw to a sawzall blade. It was like a one-all be-all thing. And I made a bunch of stuff with this one little tool. And then I got me a 10-inch Hitachi miter saw. And then I got a little Cobalt table saw, which is still the table saw that I use to this day. A lot of people cannot believe that I don't have like a actual table saw. Like no, every piece of furniture that I've ever made has went through this little job site Cobalt table saw. And it's just like, you're cutting, hardwood on that. So yeah, 8-quarter wood goes through it the same way it goes through every other saw. It's just maybe a little bit slower, or I got to use a different blade, for certain cuts. I can't just power through with a combination blade on everything. I got to switch to a ripping blade or something like that. But yeah, this has always been there. It was like, so you got a 10-inch Cobalt table saw, but then you got this huge CNC. Like, how did you skip all these steps? It's just like, I don't know, man. My mind, I've always skipped steps, and the table saw has never been the center of my shop. So even before having the CNC, I use a track saw more. even before the track saw, I used a DIY track saw that I made just out of some OSB and a couple strips of OSB and a Ryobi, circular saw. And so it's just like all it just made do with getting around having to use a table saw for whatever reason. And I think it was mostly because I didn't like trying to lift a 4 foot by 8 foot sheet of plywood on that little saw or whatever. And because I avoided it with track saws and stuff like that, it's never been a part of my build strategies as much as it is for most people. Now, granted, do I want a better table saw? Do I want? Yeah, but I still would skip a step. Like I don't want like a regular cabinet saw. I want like a slider. Like, I want to be able to, mostly because I want to be able to cross cut my cabinet doors and stuff like that. And then, if I need to, rip something, it's still there to do the same thing. Like, so in my opinion, like outside of maybe the saw stop technology, I would, if I had to spend money on getting the table saw right now, I probably would get, I've been eyeballing the Grizzly slider. It's probably the lowest price one that I can think of outside, because the rest of the sliders, they just get expensive from there. Or getting like a saw stop with the little slide extension on the side of it or whatever. Yeah. That's kind of the story on how I got into woodworking. Is basically started from DIY, and then from all those DIY projects, my wife now, but back then my girlfriend, every holiday when we would get each other something, like she would make me work and figure out something special to do for her, but I would just give her a list. And it would be like, you can pick anything off this list, and it'd just be a bunch of tools. Or Home Depot or Lowe's gift cards or Woodcraft gift cards or something like that or whatever. And that's kind of how I built up my small tools in the shop for the most part. Like most of the stuff in there that got me to where I am now was bought by her. And it was like, she's been like every holiday, every time we exchanged gifts, I was getting a tool.
That's a good woman right there, buddy.
Yeah, you are my people, man. I love it.
That's funny.
That's awesome.
I built my first set of kitchen cabinets all with a my track saw and a little job site table saw. I had the old rigid that I'd had for 20 years, and I burnt the motor up in that thing. I used it so much, but yeah, I have now, and I 100% agree with the slider. I bought the Harvey, and I bought their 1500 slider, and
okay.
I'll be honest, like when I did it, I bought the 52-inch table saw, and now I wish I'd have just bought the 36. It was only like $200 difference, but I thought, well, while I'm doing it, I'll get it. But I use that slider all the time. I love it, love it, love it. But even with that, I still I'm 53 years old. I don't want to pick up a 4x8 sheet of plywood. So, man, I got a piece of foam. I throw it on the floor, and I do my big cuts with my track saw, and then I go to the slider. So,
what's funny is I have a track saw, and I don't like using it. I think it's more of a hassle because I'm so comfortable with my table saw that I'll do a full 4x8 sheet on there. Again, I'm 20 years younger than Tom, but like, I don't know. I just,
you have to have a decent in-feed or out-feed to be able to feel comfortable doing it in, right?
Yeah, I've got a 6.5 foot outfoot table. That's the 36-inch width of my table saw. So, but yeah, that's interesting. I think of all the guests that we've had, you're the first person that like the table saw isn't like the main thing. Cause a lot of times we'll ask like, what's your favorite tool? And most guys say the table saw. And so to see how much you're doing with, not having the big saw, like I have a saw stop. He has a Harvey, nice table saws, but you don't need that. And I love that.
But you do. I watch a ton of your stuff. So you do most of your work on the CNC, and then you got that fancy edge banding machine over there. But you know what I like most out of your shop is your paint booth. I would kill to have your paint booth, man. I'm so envious every time I see you in there spraying and you got that fancy little spinning table. And I'm like, man, I'm telling you.
That paint booth is it quickly got to like the very top of my favorites in the shop, mostly because like I experienced painting for so many years without it and covering up every piece of equipment every single time I wanted to spray something. And still, no matter how much I cover up stuff, I would still get overspray on the floors and, on stuff like that or whatever, or I find like a little speckle of paint somewhere, like on another tool that I thought I covered up or whatever. And it was just like,
it's a nightmare.
When I got rid of the big clamp rack, I was like, it was intentional to do it because I wanted a paint booth, and I wasn't using the clamp rack nowhere near as much as I had wanted to use it or whatever. So that paint booth is like really nice. It's probably a third best thing in my shop that I like.
That's awesome.
How big is your paint booth? On video, everything looks bigger or smaller, but what's the size of that area?
It's 10 foot wide, 12 foot deep with 8 foot ceilings.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice, man.
Yeah. That is pretty nice. The one thing I like, I've been watching your stories every day, and don't take this the wrong way, but that your shop is real. A lot of these guys I watch Instagram and Facebook, like their shop is like crystal clean. You could eat off the floor, and maybe that's their workflow. Maybe they're big in Kaizen and 5S, and they want to keep stuff clean. My shop is a mess because I work in it and then I leave stuff, and I'm just a messy person in general. But like, I just love that. I watch your stories. I'm like, oh man, he's got wood on the floor too, and he's got like, and I don't mean that like dogging you. Like that's.
Oh no, I'm perfectly fine with the way I work or whatever. To everybody, it's to each his own. If you're able to work and clean at the same time, and that's great. Like it's safer.
Right.
Yeah.
But tripping over stuff all the time.
Yeah. So, but for me, it's just, I don't, if you guys ever go down my Instagram feed and see what my shop was before I moved into the one I'm in now, you'll see that I didn't have any space. So I was always doing this, almost like a limbo type of situation, ducking my head to get over here, leaning back to get between this, stepping over that or whatever. It was like I didn't have space, but I just found a way to continue to build or whatever. And so now that I do have space, it's like for the most part, I just have aisleways at this point now. As the shop continues to grow, and now I'm at a point where like I want a bigger space or whatever, because I continue to want to grow and do bigger projects or whatnot. But
So is your shop? Is that by your house? Is that like on your property or something?
Yeah, it's in my backyard. Yep.
Okay, so because I've seen it, it looks like it's like a 30 by 40 or something.
24 by 40.
24 by 40. Okay. Gotcha. And did you put that up? You built that?
I mean, I had it built.
Well, yeah.
That's
awesome.
I believe there's a YouTube video out there for that one somewhere. Cut trees down, got all the stumps grinded, the whole thing or whatever, and concrete laid, and the metal building. That thing went up so fast. It was crazy. And then I spent the next however long trying to outfit it. It's still not done. You can look around my shop and see that the walls never got finished. It's like I went from trying to get it completely done before I moved in to I gotta get back to work and make some more money. So, and it was like once work started back, I was like I never got back around to like really like finishing the shop at all. So, and to be honest with you, I don't know if I ever will. I probably end up buying a new shop or moving into a commercial space before I actually finish putting those walls up.
Right.
Mostly because the mental block there is that they're so high. And I really just don't feel like renting the equipment to get up there and put up those last couple of sheets of drywall or plywood.
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah, we've got a bunch of land where we're at, and the goal is to build a shop at some point. And so I'm always asking people like, do you like your size? What do you think about it and stuff? And everybody's told me go as big as you can afford.
Yep. And I did that. I went as big as I could afford. It's not big enough.
That's awesome.
It's just not big enough. But I mean, the crazy part is like, I didn't think I would have some of the stuff that I have now when I built it. It was never in the plan to have a CNC. I had never had any type of experience with the CNC before I bought the one that I bought. Matter of fact, where the CNC is now, that was supposed to be the paint booth a long time ago. And it never happened that way. And that was going to be the paint booth because the back door is right there. So I would be able to crack the back door open and exhaust out easier at that spot. But I never planned on having a CNC, never planned on having an edge band, and never planned on being cabinetry as the mainstay. Shapers and all that stuff. None of that stuff was even a thought. I was thinking tables back then. That's all I wanted to do was tables. And so I was thinking, wide belt sanders and the biggest planers I could get and a big joiner and stuff like that. I was looking for like production style stuff for tables. So like I wanted a straight line rip saw. I wanted a 4-sided planer. I wanted like that type of stuff. And I'm trying to think. I was doing tables, but tables weren't consistent in my area. So, but I kept on getting phone calls for cabinets, like built-ins and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. It's just a box, whatever. I never really did a cabinetry like talking about before, but it's like, oh yeah, sure I could. I'll do that or whatever. And little did I know, cabinetry was more in demand. It had better profit margins in it, and people understood the work behind the cabinetry a little bit more than they did a table. Everybody expected in my area particularly, everybody expected a table to be, $1,000, $1,200 or whatever, because most of the other guys around here were selling, $300 pine tables on marketplace or whatever. And so they called me looking for that. And I'm like, no, you like for that, you looking at like 15, 2,000. It was like, and I got to sit here, do all this tasseling back and forth with it and whatever. And it was like, but when a cabinetry customer called me, they was just like, they get my price and it was like, okay, when can you start? And I was like, yeah, I think this cabinetry thing might be something to look into or whatever. And I kept on getting more and more cabinetry jobs, and the tables were still coming. It was just getting less table orders. And to be honest, I don't think I've had a table order outside of the one I'm doing now, like a residential table order, probably in months. And I think the last one I did was a really big one, but it was from a old coworker / friend that they had just been waiting to get their new house or forever house, and before they ordered furniture from me, they specifically wanted furniture made for me. And so it's like that was I think it was a 7-foot by 7-foot dining table, and then a matching buffet right behind it. I pretty much worked for that family for like a year straight. I redid their kitchen cabinets, I repainted their kitchen cabinets. I made them a dining room. I made them a table that goes inside of their kitchen, and then I made new cabinets to go in their laundry room because when they moved in, the previous owner had pets in that laundry room inside that cabinet, and it was like all messed up or whatever. And then I did the 7 foot by 7 foot dining table, and then I did a matching buffet to match that dining table right behind it. And so it was like,
hold on, we can't go past 7 foot by 7 foot. You got to talk about this one. That seems a bit excessive, but it's a big square, I guess, or ping pong table. So, like, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's a big square. I think they got 4 chairs on each side, so that's 16 people. So at this point, like, me and this guy worked together when I was at my previous job, and so at this point, I think he just became. They just became grandma and granddad, and so they had, families growing, and they wanted to be able to, host. They got the new house. They both have had promotions in the last couple of years, and so on and so forth. And it was like, we want custom furniture made by you, and we want this specifically so that we can get as much as we want to, as much people in here as we can. So we made the 7 foot by 7 foot to maximize the space in their dining room. And basically this table is basically huge, but then, like, so me and this guy, we traveled out of country, and when we went out of country, the way they ate in the other country, they would have like these big gatherings, and they would have a big lazy Susan in the middle of the table. So after I made the table, he ordered like a piece of matching marble that he had match the countertop for the buffet and for the other countertops in the house, and put that on there. So basically, when they have dinner, there's this big sharing event where they just kind of all the food go to the middle of the table, and you spin it around, get you a little bit out, and that's how everybody gathers around the table. Yeah.
So on a woodworking perspective, how do you go about building a 7 foot by, like, are you just joining a bunch of boards together and making it? Is there support? Like, how do you? So I got so many questions.
So the base is a big cabinet box. So the base is like a 4 foot by 4 foot box, and then I basically wrap that box with basically like squares, I guess you would say. So every 2 inches, there's another strip of wood going up. It's like a bunch of small, like 2-inch strips with 2-inch spaces in between each one. You can kind of think of that. And so there's a bunch of lines going up the base or whatever. And that was the design that we settled on. And then as far as the tabletop, it's a solid oak table, 8-quarter white oak table or whatever, where it's whitewashed. I would say that. It pretty much, I ended up having to build it in 2 halves. And I joined the final seam on the job site with the bottom being pre-finished already. So the bottom had the whitewashed, clear coat, everything. And basically, when I pulled the last glue seam together, I basically just went in there and wiped off whatever you could see and cleaned that joint. And then the top of it was a joint with dominoes to get that alignment really nice. And I did all the pre-work in the shop, sanded everything so it'd be perfectly flat. So when I joined it on job site, I didn't have to deal with a whole lot of it. All I had to do was let the glue dry, sand that area back down, clean it off with mental spirits, make sure that I didn't see any glue residue left over, and then basically go through the same process of whitewashing it on the job site, clear coating it on the job site, and then buffing it all down and making sure everything was good. And
so that table is never coming out of that room.
No. No, it won't fit through a door.
No kidding. Wow.
You got to remember, our door is 7 foot.
That was going to be my question, because I thought you did it all as one piece. I'm like, how in the world did you get it in that house?
I was going to, and then I was like, it won't work. Like, it will work, but the cumbersome of trying to get that through the door, I would have damaged it before or damaged the door, or both, trying to get it through. And I probably would have hurt me and 3 or 4 other people trying to move this big thing in or whatever. So, because like if I cut a corner, it would have went through the door fine because the door is 7 foot, and then if I cut a corner, I already got it through. But just the logistics of trying to do something that long and awkward and heavy, it was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it in 2 halves. And I explained to us, I'm gonna have to do work on job site. It's like, it's not just gonna be a delivery. This is gonna be like a thing. But I had been working in their house for 8 or 9 months already at that point, on and off on different projects or whatever. So it was like at that point I was like family, like me and their dog has a relationship. Like we just like he hung out with me the entire time, just like, while I'm working type of deal. So yeah, we had a good time on that job.
Man,
that's just crazy, man. I can't imagine how much that table weighs. Oh my goodness, man. That's exciting
Crazy
stuff.
Enough, it's not the biggest table I've made.
Really?
All right. Tell the class.
Yeah. So the biggest table I made was actually still in the old garage. And so basically I made a 55-inch by 145-inch 8-quarter ash triple trestle table. So yeah. Man. So the trestle, like your normal trestle with the beam in the middle and those little down bars or whatever. It was 3 of those on there, and like 12 foot. So I think I used 10-foot boards, and then I had like 1 foot breadboard ends on the end of it, and it was all 8-quarter ash. It was the heaviest table I've ever made in my entire life. And if you go back in the video feed, it's like me and 3 other guys, and we're delivering this table. We're all like struggling, and we're all had this table up, and we're all shuffling our feet, and all you can hear is everybody just pattering their feet, trying to take as small steps as they can. And it's like, all right, put it down. All right, we're ready. Go a couple more feet. And it was like, if you go back, you could probably still find the video or whatever. I always get a good chuckle out of it because all I can hear is the feet paddling or whatever. And it didn't go in a huge house.
Really?
No, it's like a 1,600 square foot house or something like that, maybe like that. But it was just like there, when you walk into the door, to the right was like unused space, where like it was like a sitting room / foyer. And then the wall that was in between there and the dining room was just like some little nubs on the end. So basically it was like a long area. And the family, their parents had just passed. And so they wanted to be the family to host the family dinners from that point on. And so we made them this big table for there. And it was like, I remember back then, like I gave this guy like the biggest discount that he never knows he ever got, because my goal was to make conference room tables and not just dining room tables. And so I gave him this really big discount just so I could have the opportunity to make this big table or whatever. And I was going to promote the table and try to, get into the conference room table game. Of course, none of that worked, but that was the game plan at that point. But yeah, it was the biggest table to date that I've made.
So do you put like C channel or something to stop it from cupping and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. For the big one, that one had breadboard ends. So breadboards are supposed to be what is doing a C channel. So C channel only really became popular because people stopped using breadboards as much as
Yeah, the breadboard style kind of went away, didn't it?
Yeah, that farmhouse style kind of just faded a little bit, and it is what it is. I mean, most people, I think it's still there. It just depends on what is being offered. A lot of times customers don't know what they want. They just know they want a nice table, and it's like, so if the maker doesn't offer them breadboards, then they don't know to ask for it. But unless they're just specific on what they want.
So you mentioned we carrying that table in. I've only ever seen you in your videos. Do you have employees, or you just have some guys you call when you need help moving something big?
Yeah, I got friends that I call to help. They'll help or whatever. I want to get to that point where I have employees, and mostly because I want to plan for the future. In my mind, if I am planning to do this for the rest of my life, which I am, eventually lifting these heavy things is not going to be feasible. So I would like to be able to get to a point where I can scale the business, move into a commercial spot, have employees, and still be able to work and do things as I would want to. Like, so if I wanted to work on projects, get my itch out, I still can. But at the same time, longevity, future wise, I want to scale, especially if it's going to be heavy on the cabinetry side, in order to do some of the larger projects, especially the install portion of it. Definitely a second hand will be beneficial. And I don't necessarily need a whole lot of people or anything like that. I'd be good with just one person, to be honest with you right now, because a lot of times the extra helping hand is mostly for lifting heavy objects, installs, and just making quick work of stuff. Like I'm doing those waterfall edge tables right now. Like, you would think that I edge jointed those boards on a joiner, and they're 12-foot boards. So it's like, ain't no way. I'm not. I know for a fact that every single time I go across that joiner, I'm gonna lift up at some point, even with all the in feed and out feed I can put on there. It ain't gonna come out right. So I pulled track saw out. I cut 8 foot at a time and slide it down and readjust it, and I've been pretty accurate enough to be able to do it that way to get a clean edge joint. Granted, I have a brand new blade on that thing, and it was cutting beautifully. So I was like, "Oh, this is why the track saw's been struggling for the last couple of years, because need a new blade." But yeah. That new blade's been working out really well. The tables came together really good. Now I'm working on cutting these 45s, and I think it was yesterday I cut full depth 1.75 thick, ash with that TS75. First cut it did good. Second cut it did good. Third cut I felt it start slowing up, and it was like, uh-oh. I could see pitch and stuff like building up on the blade, and there's more burning starting to happen. I was like, all right, I got to dial it back. I'm going to cut this in maybe 2 or 3 passes instead of trying to hog it all out in one or whatever. And so I got one more table to do. I got to cut the angles on it tomorrow, and hopefully I can get through it without messing nothing up too bad.
Man, that's impressive. Well, man, I'm going to tell you, I'm quite impressed with your work and all your shop. So you got that big table going on. What else you got coming up in the future already on the books?
The next job after that is I got a little fireplace built in. So two base cabinets, 2 upper bookshelves that's going in between on both sides of a fireplace. And then at the same time, I'm doing a couple of floating shelves for a designer. I believe it's for their house though, but and then after that, I don't think I have anything on the books after that. I think it's just I have a couple of potential people that have not put deposits down yet, but so I don't count them until deposits down. So we'll see.
Is most of your business word of mouth? Do you have any sort of advertising? Is it?
So it's all word of mouth based off of Google and Google reviews and the posting that I do on Facebook. But after Workbench Con, my takeaway from there was that I do need to spend money on advertisements. So I literally just started campaigns on Facebook for marketing, and this time I'm not just going to be like, hey, I'm gonna try it. If it doesn't work in a couple of days, I'm gonna give up type of deal. Like, this isn't working. from my understanding, from talking to a number of people, you got to spend quite a bit of money, and you got to do with that for a couple of months at a time for it to actually start paying off and getting your name out there. And my biggest thing is I want to be able to scale, and I can't scale without more jobs. I can't justify a commercial space without a bunch of jobs on the book. I can't justify an employee without enough work to support an employee. And so in order to get more work, I have to tell more people that I have this service available. So that's the basic breakdown. That's how I'm logically thinking about it, is that I need to make more people in my local area aware of me being here. It's like most people think that, like everybody at Workbench kind of like, "Hey man, you're killing it." I said, "No, I'm not. I don't know when the next job is coming. I'm living off faith right now." And that was my whole story throughout the whole Workbench. Kind of was like, "Hey, you think I'm killing it, but I'm not. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to pay the bills next month." And it's like it's been like that for probably about a year now. It's just like every time one job ends, God blesses me with another phone call, and that person will come and be like, "Hey, can you do this for me?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, then you can agree on the price, and I definitely can." And it's been like that for probably since last summer. And so, do I want to stay that way? No, but at the same time, being able to exercise my faith has allowed me to go from being stressed about it to now I'm at the point where it's like, you know what? If this ends today, I still trust you guys. If I gotta go find another job or do something else, it is what it is. I mean, I'm handy enough to transition into any trades job that I really want. If I really wanted to, I don't necessarily have to go back to the old job. But if I want to go back to the old job, I didn't burn any bridges, so I can go back. I won't be back at the highest position that I was at, but I'm sure I could still go back and be a pipe fitter and make a decent wage or whatever. And would I look at it as a failure? Probably, knowing me. I hold myself to high standards and ultra competitive, but I'm not willing to make my family suffer because of my pride or, because I'm stuck on holding on to my dream, whatever. It's like there's plenty of examples out there where people went down this road and had to go back and get a job and then came back and figured out what they were doing wrong. And then their business was successful type of deal. Like, it's not always just going to be a straight line path to where you want to go.
Yeah. And the other thing is that what we see on Instagram and YouTube, and when you go there to Workbench Con, is a worldly perspective. And from a biblical perspective, God says our daily bread. And it's so different to wake up and say, "Lord, thank you for meeting our needs today." And we got a roof over our head that hopefully isn't leaking today. We got some food in the fridge. The lights are still on. Family's got good health. And so, but I think you're killing it because, and what I mean by that is, maybe, the world's all about finances, but man, your posts and your stories, I love how you share your scripture that you're in every day. And sometimes that's exactly what I needed that morning, is to hit on NolanBuilt story. And, there's a passage that you posted that spoke to me. And to me, that is, that's success right there, man. When you're out, because you're planting seeds out there that you may never see.
Yep.
And you might be blessing somebody's day, because 100,000 people ain't sending you a message every day to say, "Hey, I saw that. It helped me." So yeah, man, I love what you're doing.
Well, the other thing too is that, I preach this on the podcast and in my life, is that my shop time, my drive to want to do that isn't going to come in front of my family. And so, I don't get much shop time because I'd rather roll around on the ground with my 4-year-old and wrestle with him. And the shop time I get is minimal, but I'm okay with that. And to hear you say, man, the fact of that you're not going to let your pride get in the way of supporting your family shows wisdom. That because not everybody can do that. I know guys that haven't done that. I've got a good buddy who won't not realizing that, dude, you're not going to make it in what you're doing. You need to get a real job, right? And you're doing, God's providing, and you're able to pay the bills, and you're doing that. So keep doing it. And if it gets to that point where you feel that, maybe Lord, it's time for me to go back and get a normal job, then that'll happen. But until then, keep doing what you're doing,
Yeah.
That's awesome. Tom, what you got going on in the shop? Well, you said you haven't gotten going on the shop.
Well,
yeah, on the farm.
Actually, I picked up 3 commissions this week, so I got 2 signs and a cabinet that I've got to build, and I've got to somehow incorporate that into getting the garden ready, getting everything ready for the irrigation, and that was kind of why I decided to do this social media fast. I was praying, God, I have more than I can do. I'm only one man, and there's just not enough hours in the day. And, I was out pruning the fruit trees, and he's like, it's time to prune some stuff out of your life for a period. Not saying I'm never coming back on Instagram or YouTube, but for this season, I've got to trim some stuff out so I can, because the thing about farming is, like, for example, this week I spent several days pruning fruit trees. It's a 1-week task. It's a time-consuming task that week, but now I don't have to do anything other than water those trees the rest of the season. Same thing with, with getting the garden beds ready and, starting seedlings and planting. A lot of the tasks are very heavy in the spring, and then it's more of weeding and watering and maintenance throughout the growing season, and then you get into the fall. But for the next month, man, I've been trying to figure out, it's like, okay, I'm setting this part of the day to be outside, and this part of the day to get in the shop and work on the commission work. So I'm going to be a busy man. Very tired, but
no kidding.
So,
no kidding.
How about you?
I actually got some shop time, and twofold. So, Nolan, I started a business this year. I make a all natural hard wax oil finish called Willie's Wood Honey, and that's been going well. It's selling. People are liking it and all that stuff. But I want to have another product that goes hand in hand with it. And so I've been working on developing like a paste wax or like a shop wax, something that you could use like on your table saw, and you could put it on wood and that kind of stuff. And so I spent some time. I went through 5 or 6 different formulas, ratios of waxes and oils, and finally got to one that I'm really happy with. And so once I do some more testing and stuff, I'll send it out to, I've got a few buddies that I'll send stuff out, like Tom and a couple other guys, to test. And so I was working on that. However, one of the projects my wife asked me to do is, when you come in from the garage, it goes into our laundry room, pantry area, and then you go into the house. And when you come, we use the garage, which is my shop, for coming in and out of the house. We don't use the front door. There's no sidewalk. We live out in the country, and there's like no sidewalk to our front. That's weird. That's on the project list as well. But and so there's no place, my wife's like, there's no place I can set my purse down or the diaper bag or anything like that. When I come in the door, it always goes to the kitchen table or the dining room table, and that gets cluttered up, or our kitchen island. And so she's like, I just need a little entry table, just something that sits here right inside the door. And so when we bought the house, the guy must have been a woodworker, because there's a ton of white oak up in the attic. dry, really nice 4-quarter white oak. And so I got all the decent stuff down, and I'm going to use that to build this entry table. And so I glued up one top. It's not to size. I just glued up, got everything edge jointed and run through the table saw, and then got the glue up, and that's in clamps now. I got to take it out of clamps, been there over a day. And then I'm going to do 2. I'm actually doing, when I do projects like this, I try to do a technique that I've never done before. And so it's hard for me to explain, but it's going to be a 2-tiered table. So like a top and then like a bottom shelf, but there's going to be no aprons. The legs are going to mortise and tenon into the tops or whatever. And so I got this
table.
Yeah. So I've got this thought in my head. And so, I got that going, but I'm waiting. I'm almost out of glue. And so I ordered glue from Boss Dog, Nick. Yeah. And so I met him at Workbench Con, and we had some good conversations. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to order his glue. So I ordered his glue. It's going to be here like Monday or Tuesday. And then I'm going to glue up that second panel and start working on that. I'm excited to try his glue out. I'm a huge TB3 fanboy. And so and I told him that, and he's like, well, mine's more like TB2. It's not TB3. It's water resistant, not waterproof. And so, but how many times I don't build cutting boards anymore. So how many times am I making something that's going to, be exposed to that much water? So I'm excited to try his glue out, but he seems to be killing it. He can't hardly keep up with it, which is, he found a niche because, there's a bunch of different finish companies doing what I do. You can find different ones, Rubio, Walrus Oil, all these different companies, Bumbleshoots. But glue, man, you got Gorilla Glue and you got Titebond. Really the only 2 guys in the game. And so I think he's found something. People are eating it up. But yeah, that's what I got going on in the shop. And I got this shop wax I've been putting on everything. I don't know if you saw my story, Tom, but what I found was Willie's Wood Honey, it ambers stuff like any normal finish does, right? You put it on a piece of maple, it's going to kind of yellow, make it ambered or pop. The wax that I've created, it's tung oil based as well with carnauba wax. It doesn't amber it. It's like a clear finish. And so I put that on a couple of different things that I had, and it's night and day compared to, I could market it as, if you don't want something that's going to amber your wood, if you're doing a lighter color wood, this will be your option. And so I'm pretty excited about that. So yeah, that's what's been going on in my shop, and looking forward to continuing to make some sawdust and for the nice weather. Now it's snowing like crazy out, but we should start breaking into spring here pretty soon. So looking forward. I've been seeing Tom's stories where it's like gorgeous outside and you're out walking. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, but while we were at Workbench Con, we got 6 inches of snow here 2 days in a row. And I wasn't here to experience it, but my wife and daughter sent me pictures. And they come home, and like it's been in the 30s at night, but then getting up like it was 60 degrees outside today. So, or like 58, nice. Something like that. So, yeah, I kind of wish we had winter for another month. It would give me a little more breathing time, but it's here. So, anyway.
Yeah.
Well, Nolan, awesome. Man, I just want to say thank you for coming on, man. I love you, man, and keep putting out that positive content, man. It's a blessing. It really is.
Absolutely. And where can people find you? Instagram, YouTube, your website, where can people find you at?
Social media platforms are all NolanBuilt, and the website is NolanBuilt.com. Yep. So yeah, like you guys probably wouldn't know it, but it's more people, like say at Workbench, there's more people out there that would come up to me and be like, talking about the scripture and the word and everything. So it's more there's more of a combination of woodworkers and faith believers out there than you think there is. And
We found that out at Workbench Con,
yeah.
man. I bet you I've met a dozen or more guys that were believers, had some deep theological conversations with guys.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I like it.
And then there are some people out there that are like, they would just honestly just come up to them and be like, hey, man, you're the only reason I read the Bible, because you make it so easily for me you put it right in front of me every single morning.
That's what I'm talking about.
It does my heart some good. It's like, I can't take the glory for it. God gets all the glory for it, but it does make me feel good that my struggle with reading every day and me posting about it and it's helping somebody else read every day. That's the real reason why I post, is because I always had an issue or a hard time reading the Bible consistently every day. And so my way around that was just posting it. So, all right, if I'm on this every day, then maybe I can post this every day. And so a lot of people don't even know, like, my main page is strictly about Bible verses. So I have a Instagram page that's called Servant Life. And so I post there before I post anything on NolanBuilt. Every single day is every single Bible verse that I've ever posted is nothing but, the whole feed is nothing but reels, posts, and stories of Bible verses.
What was the name of that again?
Servant Life.
Okay, I'm gonna look that up.
Just followed you.
So that is the OG page. It was there before NolanBuilt. And but like that has been my way of me getting over the hump of trying to read every day and getting my word. And this year I'm on a goal to read the Bible in 365 days, because I've never been able to say I've read the whole Bible front to back or whatever. So in the Bible app that I post from, I started one of their plans. And so basically I think I'm like on day 75 or 78 or something like that. And so I read all these chapters every day in the morning, trying to better myself and get further into the word. Now, am I comprehending everything? Am I, remembering everything? No. But in my thought process is that this will just be the first time I read the Bible.
Amen.
Completely front to back. So I'm a true believer that I can read the same verse 300 times between now and 2 years from now, and the 300th at one time I might see it in a different perspective. Yep. Something may have happened that I didn't see it in a certain way or whatever. Or how you can just go to church, or a preacher can read something you've read a million times and they have a different perspective or thought process, and it just opens your mind up, gives you a paradigm shift, and next thing you know, some weight is lifted off your shoulder that you didn't even know it was there. So it's just like, in my mind, I will eventually be able to read the Bible enough times to where maybe like I don't dread reading the chapter that says this person begot, this person, this begot, this person begot, this person begot. Like, those has always stopped me in my tracks, where I doze off and fall asleep, and then I never come back to reading, the Old Testament all the way through the way I try. Because I always try to do it on my own and start from Genesis and go to Revelation, and it's never happened. So I'm just following the plan that this app is giving me, and I read the amount that I'm supposed to read every day. And because I know that I'm being guided and I have certain stopping points, I'm not like exhausting myself to try to read like a whole chapter or all of these different pages or whatever. So right now it's going well.
That's awesome.
I'm trying to be consistent and stay to it, and make it just part of my day, part of my routine. So
yep.
The way I look at my life is that I should wake up in the morning. The first thing I should do is talk to God. And before I go to sleep, the last thing I do, I should talk to God. And so in the morning time, I wake up, I pray, talk to God, and then I go and I do my daily Bible verse, which is what you guys see. And then after I do all of the getting my baby girl to the school bus, and then come back in the house. Before I go out in the shop, I read this Bible plan, and then I come out into the shop and start working or whatever. And so then at nighttime, I just pray before I go to bed, or like while I'm in the shower, or whatever it may be, and just talk to God. So just for insight for people who are listening, prayer is not always what you are picturing it is, or how it's been depicted in church, or it doesn't have to be any certain type of way. It doesn't have to be long-winded. It just has to be a conversation between you and God. And that means if your conversation is about something that you need, then you go to him and ask him, because he wants that dependency on you. Like, he wants you to depend on him the same way you want your child to reach up and ask for help from you when they're trying to figure things out, when they're trying to learn. We are still children to God. So if we are going through life and trying to do all this stuff on our own, then he's going to sit there and watch us and let us do it the same way you as a parent is going to let your child figure it out and learn on their own. But at some point in time, he still wants you to come back to him and reach and depend on him. And so in my mind, prayer is just having a conversation with him. You can ask him for the desires of your heart. He said he'll give them to you. And then also you can just talk to him about how you're feeling. And then you can also just ask, like, have a general question, like, ask him how he's feeling. Like, how was your take today, God? You know what I'm saying? Like, and sometimes it's not always just talking to him. Sometimes you might open the prayer up and say, Lord, here I am. I'm listening. And just let it be that way. Go in the shop, do your thing, and maybe see if he says something to you. It may not be an audible voice. It may be somebody calling you. It may be something that he shows you. You see something. He may give you a paradigm shift. You may read something. Something might help you. You might help somebody else. And you know what I'm saying? And like, it's not always going to be about you and what you can do with him and all this stuff. Like, you're going to go through things in your life. You're going to go through things that you can't figure out why, and you're going to have to trust God's plan. And sometimes it may not be for you. It may be he's putting you through something or allowing you to go through something that may be used 10, 20 years down the road now. And you might be able to have this experience and be able to say, hey, yeah, I've been there. Don't fret. You'll be all right. It's not the end of the world. And you can help somebody else with the same situation type of deal. And so it's like, a lot of times we as people and as Christians, we want to know everything, and we want to have a game plan, and we want to have it all figured out, and we get frustrated when we can't, and we want to do all this stuff. And in my mind, it's just like, he never told us that we would know every step. It's always been about faith, trusting him, trusting his plan, and trusting, and then just working in his will. And the whole, like, I've been wearing this wristband that says walk by faith, not by sight, for probably 12 years. Like, it does not come off. And it's just like, it's a daily reminder that I don't have to have it figured out. All I got to do is take a step forward. Just one step. Just keep moving forward. I may be frustrated. I may be confused. I may be upset. I may be sad. Take another step forward. And as long as I'm breathing, just keep trusting him, keep trusting his plan. You know what I'm saying? It may not be all glitz and glam. I may not end up being the person that I wanted to be, but as long as I end up being the person he wanted me to be, and I feel like I trusted God, I believe that his son lived and died and rose again for the remission of our sins, then that's the big game plan. And that's all I got to focus on.
Man, preach it. You know, one of the things I always say is it's not about perfection, but it's about direction, right? Yeah. And so something we in Sunday school this morning, actually, we're in Hebrews 11, right? Faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we do not see. And then it goes down and talks about, you know, Abraham and how him and then his wife, how they had to have faith because, you know, they didn't know what the promised land, what that would look like. But they just had to have faith that God was gonna, you know, bless them and bless generations after them. And so,
I was just reading that, and it was like one of the things that I read that was crazy to me is like when you're reading it, they had direct communication with God, and God told his wife that she was going to have a baby, and she laughed at him. She laughed at God, and so did he. And I was just like, oh man, like, man, y'all up here walking with him every day, got communication with him, and he telling you something, and you still don't believe him. So it's just like, for me to have never seen him, have never had any audible connection. When I lose faith and when I doubt and stuff, it made me feel like, okay, I am nowhere. It's not as bad because I am hard on myself for feeling like I failed. And it's like, a lot of times we as humans judge ourselves worse than what he's judging. He's already died for the remission of our sins. He's already forgiven us. You know what I'm saying? Like, our sins are paid for, but we still will walk through sin and then hold our head down, try to hide from him, and act like he doesn't know all. It's like, but when I read that, I was like, oh, man.
So it's not just me.
It's not just me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you had direct connection and you still, having, all of these issues or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, it made me wonder also, is like, if I did have direct audible connection with him, would I fumble that ball? Would I believe it? You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't read the whole Bible yet, but I feel like in somewhere it says like when Jesus does come back, most of us won't accept who he is because there is no real way to know or whatever. And he says there'll be false, prophets and false witnesses and, people that are portraying them and Antichrist and all this stuff, whatever. So it's like, more than likely, majority of us won't believe it's him, even if he is right in front of us. So it's like, it's a hard thing to battle with in your mind because you want to do what's right. You want to be in good standing. You want to make it. And the good thing is that he told us all we had to do was believe that he, died and rose again for the remission of our sins and trust and believe and, just keep walking towards him.
Man, I love it. See, this is what this podcast is about to us. Having these kind of conversations, because where else are you going to go to hear about woodworking and building 7-foot by 7-foot tables, but also hear about Jesus, right? I mean, that's exactly what this is about. We love it. And while I could talk about it all night, the time has changed and means my getting up at my normal time is going to be an hour earlier than normal. So, but man, we really, really appreciate you. And it's been a really good conversation. I'm super pumped now. Like, I do my Bible reading at night and I'm about to read 10 books tonight. I swear. Just Nolan's got me all hyped up.
Oh, that's like good.
It. So,
but God be the glory.
Absolutely. Well, until next week, I'm Will from Flat Woodworks.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.